The snow had been falling for hours. Thick, heavy flakes covered the empty park like a white blanket, muffling every sound. Wind howled through the bare branches above. Christmas lights blinked across the street, warm and distant, like another world. On a bench beneath a broken street lamp, a little boy sat completely still. His name was Noah, 4 years old. He was bundled in a jacket 2 sizes too small, his legs pulled up tight, trying to keep warm. In his arms, wrapped in a thin blanket with one fraying edge, was a baby girl, his baby sister, Lily. Her face was flushed, tiny nose red, lips slightly blue. Her eyelids fluttered as she whimpered softly against his chest. "Shh," Noah whispered, rocking her gently. His voice shook from the cold. "Don't cry, Lily. Big brother's here." She let out another tiny, broken sob. Noah leaned closer, trying to shield her from the wind. His fingers, red and raw, trembled as he pulled the blanket tighter around her. The snow didn't stop. It gathered in his dark hair and melted slowly down his cheeks. "Mommy's going to come back soon," he murmured, as if repeating something he had told himself over and over. "She promised.
She just went to get something.
She said to stay right here." He looked up. No one. The park was empty, just shadows and snow and silence. He looked down at Lily again. Her eyes weren't really opening anymore. Her lips trembled. "Please don't get colder," he whispered. "You gotta be brave, okay? Like Mommy said." He looked around again. "Somebody," he called weakly. His voice cracked. "Please." Nothing. Then, footsteps. Slow, steady, crunching through the snow. Noah's body stiffened. He clutched Lily tighter. A man came into view under the dim streetlight, tall, dressed in a dark coat, expensive shoes nearly buried in slush. He paused when he saw them. 2 small shapes huddled together on the bench, barely visible under a thin layer of snow. The man approached slowly. "Hey," he said. His voice was low, unsure. "Are you all right?" Noah didn't answer. He blinked up at the man with wide, tired eyes. The man crouched, lowering himself to their level. His gaze fell on Lily's pale face. "God," he whispered. "How long have you been out here?" Noah swallowed. His lips barely moved. "Sir, my baby sister is freezing," he said softly. "Can you help us?" The man stared at him for a second, long enough to see Noah's shaking arms, the baby's shallow breaths, the snow clinging to the thin blanket. Then, without a word, he pulled off his thick wool coat and wrapped it tightly around both children. He folded it over twice, pressing it gently around Lily's tiny body. "I've got you," he murmured. "Hold on." He lifted the baby first, her weight barely more than a bag of flour. Then he lifted Noah, who didn't resist. The boy just kept holding his sister, like his life depended on it. "What's your name?" the man asked as he carried them toward a black car parked nearby. "Noah," the boy said. "And hers?" "Lily." "I'm Adrian," the man said. "Adrian Hale." He opened the car door, eased them inside, and turned the heat up to full. Noah was shivering now, but he didn't cry. He just looked down at Lily, making sure the coat stayed around her. "She's really little," he said quietly. "Mommy said I have to keep her warm." Adrian turned around from the front seat, looking at them. 2 little strangers frozen and silent in the dark. "You did good, Noah," he said. "You kept her safe." Noah didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the window, scanning the falling snow. "Mommy's still out there," he whispered. Adrian started the engine. The heater roared softly. Warm air began to fill the cabin. "You're safe now," he said. Noah looked up at him, confused, hopeful, but still holding Lily close. "Is it okay if we stay with you?" he asked quietly. "Just for a little bit?" Adrian met his eyes in the mirror. Something shifted in his face. "Yes," he said. The car pulled away from the park bench. Snow kept falling. Noah leaned his forehead gently to Lily's. "I told you, Lily," he whispered. "Big brother's here." Adrian pulled into his circular driveway just after midnight. Snow clung to the trees as the iron gates slowly closed behind them, muffling the wind. The house stood tall under the porch lights, pristine, silent, more like a museum than a home. Inside, Warmth greeted their frozen skin. Noah let out a quiet sigh, still cradling Lily beneath Adrian's thick coat. Adrian didn't say a word. He carried them up the wide staircase into a guest room that hadn't been used in months. The sheets were clean, untouched. He laid Lily gently on the bed, her tiny face pale and still. Then he knelt beside Noah to remove his soaked socks and shoes. The boy's small toes were red from the cold. Noah blinked at the high ceiling and polished floors. "Is this a hotel?" he asked softly. Adrian offered a faint smile. "No, just my house." Noah nodded, still holding Lily close. Whether the answer comforted him or not, Adrian couldn't tell. He picked up his phone immediately. "I have 2 children here," he told his physician. "One's about 4, the other just a baby. Cold exposure. I need you here now." As he waited, he paced, checking Lily, checking Noah. Their stillness made his chest tighten. He found a thick blanket in the closet and wrapped it around both of them. Then he sat on the edge of the bed. Without a word, Noah leaned against him, resting his head on Adrian's arm. Adrian froze, unsure what to do. He hadn't touched anyone with this kind of closeness in years. But he didn't move away. He let the boy stay. 20 minutes later, the doctor arrived. Calm, quick. He examined Lily, then Noah. "No frostbite," he said, "but definitely early hypothermia. They're lucky." Adrian stood by the door afterward, watching the children now tucked safely under layers of blankets, slowly relaxing into sleep. Then Lily whimpered, a thin, fragile cry. Adrian rushed to the bed, unsure. "She's hungry," Noah murmured. Adrian asked, "Do you know what she drinks?" "Formula. Mommy always makes a bottle before bed." Adrian nodded and hurried to the kitchen. The sleek surfaces felt colder than the snow outside. He tore through cabinets until he found a forgotten donation box, baby formula, bottles, instructions. He boiled water, let it cool, spilled some. The bottle was too hot. He hissed in frustration. A quiet voice from behind startled him. "You have to warm the milk first." Adrian turned. Noah stood there wrapped in a blanket. "Not too hot," the boy added. "Cold milk makes her tummy hurt." Adrian nodded.
"Right.
Not too hot." He followed Noah's instructions carefully. When the bottle was ready, he handed it to him. Noah tested the warmth on his wrist like a pro. "She'll drink that," he said. "Can I feed her?" Upstairs, Adrian sat nearby while Noah held Lily, guiding the bottle to her mouth. Her hands gripped his finger as she drank, eyelids fluttering. "It's okay, Lily," Noah whispered. "I'm here." When she finished, Adrian gently lifted her and placed her in the crib that had been assembled just hours earlier. He covered her with the softest blanket he could find. Then he did something unexpected. He hummed. It wasn't a song he knew, just a low, warm sound from deep in his chest. Lily's breath evened out, her face calm. From the bed, Noah whispered, "You have a nice voice." Adrian gave a soft laugh. "Thanks." He stayed by the crib, watching Lily breathe, then turned to see Noah already falling asleep, curled beneath the blanket, his small body finally at rest. The house was quiet, but for the first time, it didn't feel empty. Adrian didn't sleep that night. Not because he couldn't, because something inside him had changed, and he didn't want to stop watching over them. The next morning, the house was quiet. Sunlight poured softly through the tall windows of Adrian's home, glinting off polished countertops and untouched marble floors. In the kitchen, the scent of freshly brewed coffee floated in the air as Adrian stood at the counter, still in his robe, stirring his cup slowly. Soft footsteps tapped down the hallway. Noah peeked around the corner. He was in tiny socks, dragging the oversized pajama pants Adrian had found for him the night before. He walked in quietly and climbed onto one of the bar stools. Adrian looked over and offered a gentle smile. "Morning, buddy." Noah didn't smile back. His hands fidgeted with the hem of his shirt. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asked, "Mr. Adrian, do you think Mommy is still looking for us?" Adrian turned fully toward him, the warmth in his eyes softening even more. "I don't think," he said quietly. "I know she is. And we're going to find her." Noah's shoulders dropped just a little, a flicker of relief crossing his face. He sat quietly for a moment, then spoke again. Her name's Ava. My mommy. She works at a place called Bluebird Cafe. He nodded to himself, as if repeating something familiar. She bakes cookies, chocolate chip ones. She said when I turn 5, she'll make me a birthday cake with stars on it. Adrian crouched beside him now, listening fully. Do you remember anything else about her? Noah's eyes lit up a little. She has sunshine hair. Yellow and shiny. She sings to Lily every night. Even when she's really tired, she sings. Adrian paused, absorbing every word. Do you remember where the cafe is? Noah frowned. No, but it has a bell on the door. It always rings when she walks in. I wait for her at the window sometimes after preschool. I know it's called Bluebird. Adrian nodded. That's a start. A really good start. Noah looked down. Is that enough? Adrian stood and ruffled the boy's hair. Let's find out. He grabbed his laptop from the living room and set it on the kitchen island. Noah scooted closer, watching as Adrian typed Bluebird Cafe into the search bar. Dozens of results appeared, some local, some far away. Adrian refined the search to within the city limits. I'll check each one, he said. He opened a map and began marking every cafe that matched or came close. Bluebird Cafe. Bluebird Bakehouse. The Bluebird Nest. Noah leaned his chin onto his hand, watching silently. We'll start near the central bus station, Adrian murmured to himself, pointing on the screen. The plan was forming. It was still Christmas weekend, roads packed, many cafes closed, others maybe not. But he wasn't going to stop. He couldn't. Snow kept falling steadily over the city, blanketing rooftops, streetlights, and sidewalks in thick layers of white. The car's windshield wipers scraped rhythmically, clearing the frost as Adrian drove slowly through slushy roads. Beside him sat Noah, bundled in a thick coat, arms wrapped protectively around Lily, who was nestled in a blanket. Her tiny eyes blinked sleepily, unaware of the journey unfolding around her. They had already passed 3 cafes. None felt right. Adrian pulled up to the next one, the Bluebird's Nest. Noah glanced out the window, studying the entrance carefully. Then, with quiet certainty, he shook his head. This isn't the one, he whispered. Mommy's cafe has a bell on the door. It always rings when she walks in. Adrian made a note. That detail might seem small, but to him it was gold. As they moved on to the next location, Noah suddenly spoke again. His voice was hesitant, as if he wasn't sure he should share it. Mommy told us we were going to Grandma's house. She was carrying lots of bags. At the bus station, someone knocked her down, and then I couldn't see her anymore. Adrian slowed the car. Silence stretched. The pieces fell into place in his mind. The crowd. The chaos. The panic. Ava hadn't abandoned her children. She'd lost them in the most terrifying way imaginable. Adrian didn't say anything. He just reached over and gently placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. The boy looked out the window again, fingers tightening around Lily. They continued searching, but something had changed. The tension in the car grew heavier. Noah grew quieter. He refused to get out at each stop, even when Adrian offered to carry Lily inside to keep her warm. When Adrian reached for Lily, Noah blocked him, eyes wide. No, he said firmly. I promised Mommy I'd protect her. I didn't keep her safe last time. Adrian's breath caught. The pain in Noah's voice wasn't just fear, it was guilt. A burden far too heavy for a child to bear. You did your best, Noah, Adrian said softly. You're doing so good. Still, Noah clung to Lily like she was all he had left. By late afternoon, they had almost exhausted the list. Snow was falling harder now, the sky turning a steel gray. Adrian sighed, steering the car down a narrow street near the old bus terminal. Maybe we'll try again tomorrow, he murmured. And then, sir, that's my mom. That's my mom. Noah pressed his hands and face to the cold window, breath fogging the glass. Adrian hit the brakes. You're sure? He asked. Noah nodded, so hard his little head bobbed. That's her. Mommy, I see her. Adrian turned his gaze toward the sidewalk. There, under a flickering street lamp, stood a woman. Her coat was thin. Her golden hair, messy, windblown, was tied in a loose bun. She moved from one telephone pole to another, her gloved hands shaking as she taped up a worn, crumpled flyer. Even through the misty glass, Adrian could see the photo. 2 children. She was crying, though trying to stay composed. Her eyes scanned every passerby with frantic hope. Heartache carved into every line of her face. Adrian couldn't breathe. Beside him, Lily stirred and let out a soft sound. Then came a tiny babble, gentle, broken. "Mama?" Adrian turned to Noah. "Do you want to go to her?" Tears welled instantly in Noah's eyes. "Can we?" Adrian opened the door. He scooped Lily into his arms, careful not to jostle her, and followed behind as Noah ran ahead through the snow. "Mommy," the boy shouted. The woman froze. Her whole body went still. Then she turned slowly, almost afraid to believe what she'd heard. Her eyes locked on the little boy running toward her. She dropped the flyer. It fluttered away in the wind as she fell to her knees. "Noah," she cried out, catching him as he leapt into her arms. Tears flooded her face. "My baby. Oh my God, my baby." Adrian stepped closer. Lily nestled against his chest. Ava looked up, gasping when she saw her daughter safe and sleeping. Adrian gently passed Lily into her trembling arms. Ava sobbed, cradling both children as if afraid they might vanish again. "Thank you," she said through the tears. "Thank you. Thank you." She kissed their heads, whispering prayers and apologies. Then slowly, she raised her eyes. Ocean blue, glassy with emotion. They met Adrian's. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Recognition passed between them. Relief and something deeper. Adrian offered a quiet smile. "They're strong," he said softly. "Just like their mother." Snow fell gently around them as Ava held her children close, her entire world restored in a single breathtaking moment. Adrian stood a few feet away, heart fuller than he'd ever known. For the first time in years, his eyes softened completely. A family, scattered and broken, was beginning to come back together. Snow was still falling hard when they returned to Adrian's house. The wind howled around the car as he opened the front door and guided them inside, Noah half asleep in his arms, Ava holding Lily tight to her chest. Her eyes were red from crying, her body stiff from the cold, but her grip on her children never loosened. "You're welcome to stay," Adrian said quietly. "At least until the storm passes." Ava hesitated in the hallway, glancing down at Noah, then Lily. Both children were already drifting off, safe and warm. She looked at Adrian, his coat soaked, hair disheveled, expression steady.
"Kind."
She nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, they tucked Noah into the guest bed. Lily was placed gently in the crib nearby. Adrian stayed until both were asleep, then stepped back into the hallway with Ava. "You've done a lot for us," she said. Adrian shook his head. "I just did what anyone should." Ava gave a small, tired smile. Not everyone would have stopped. The next evening, they shared their first meal together. It was awkward at first. The kitchen table, usually set for one, now held 4 mismatched plates, plastic cups, and bowls of steaming chicken soup. Adrian cleared his throat. "I'm not much of a cook," he admitted, "but it's edible, I think." Ava picked up her spoon. "It smells good." Noah, sitting between them, leaned toward his mother and whispered with a sleepy grin, "Mommy, Mr. Adrian can cook soup like you. He made chicken soup when you were gone." Ava looked over at Adrian. Surprised, he gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. She laughed softly. Not out of politeness, but warmth. "Really? I guess you did more than just keep them warm." Something in Adrian's chest ached with a feeling he didn't know how to name. That night, Lily began to fuss. By midnight, she was running a slight fever. Ava rushed to her side, trying to soothe her, but the baby whimpered restlessly. Panic flickered in Ava's eyes. Adrian entered the room quietly, a cool, damp cloth in hand. He knelt beside her, offering it without a word. She took it, hands trembling. "I haven't slept in days," she murmured. "And she never gets sick." Adrian reached out, his hand gently covering hers as she pressed the cloth to Lily's forehead. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Ava blinked at him. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes shimmered. She looked down at Lily, then back at him, and gave the faintest nod. Together, they sat by the crib, watching over her. Ava began to hum, a soft lullaby, almost a whisper. Lily's breathing slowed. Her tiny hand relaxed. Adrian leaned back and closed his eyes. He'd never heard anything so calming. Later that night, Noah called softly from the other room. Adrian went to him. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Noah shook his head. "I was thinking about Daddy." Adrian sat on the edge of the bed. "He was strong," Noah said. "He used to lift me up to see the stars." Adrian listened, then tucked the blanket around him. "Your daddy would be proud of you," he said. Noah looked up. "Can I still hug you even if you're not my daddy?" Adrian didn't hesitate. He opened his arms. Noah climbed into them and hugged him tightly. It was late when Ava walked into the kitchen for water. She paused in the doorway. Adrian had fallen asleep on the couch, head tilted, arms curled protectively around Lily, who was now sleeping peacefully on his chest. The fire in the hearth had gone low, casting long shadows. Ava stood there silently, drinking him in, the sight of a man who had carried burdens alone for far too long, now holding her child with such tenderness. Her eyes softened. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel alone. She didn't wipe the quiet tears that filled her eyes.
Not this time.
The snow had finally softened by morning, blanketing the front yard in quiet white. The storm had passed, leaving behind a calm stillness. Early in the day, while Noah and Lily still slept, Adrian handed Ava a spare pair of gloves and a shovel. "Want to help me dig us out?" he asked with a small smile. Ava chuckled softly. "Only if you promise not to laugh when I fall." They stepped outside together, side by side, working in slow rhythm under the pale winter light. Their breath clouded in the cold air, shovels scraping gently along the walkway. It was the first time they'd been alone. "Was it hard?" Adrian asked after a moment. "Raising them on your own?" Ava kept her eyes on the snow. "Yes," she whispered, "but not the way people think." She inhaled, the breath shaky. "I lost my husband in a car accident when I was 6 months pregnant with Lily. Noah was just learning to walk. I didn't have time to fall apart." Her voice thinned. "I worked. I hoped they'd be okay." Adrian glanced over at her, surprised by the honesty in her voice. "I stopped dreaming," she continued softly. "No painting. No baking. Just survival." He nodded slowly. "I get that." Ava looked at him, waiting. "I grew up without parents," Adrian said. "Bounced around foster homes. I thought building something big, this house, my company, would make me feel whole." "Did it?" she asked gently. He shook his head.
No.
"Turns out it's not things that matter. It's people." Their eyes met, quiet, understanding, and held a moment longer than before. That afternoon, while helping Adrian sort through old storage, Ava opened a door at the end of the hallway. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. The room was empty except for a dusty stool and a forgotten easel leaning in the corner. "This was supposed to be an art room," Adrian admitted from behind her. "But I never used it." Ava stepped inside, fingers brushing the windowsill. "It's beautiful." Adrian hesitated. Maybe it was waiting for someone else. Ava paused, just for a heartbeat, and something warm flickered across her face before she walked out. The next morning, she returned to that hallway and froze. Inside the once-empty art room sat a full set of watercolor paints, fresh brushes, clean paper, a warm lamp softly glowing in the corner. On the table was a simple note in Adrian's handwriting. "I hope you'll never stop dreaming again." Her breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. "Adrian," she whispered. But he wasn't there. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed, not by the gift, but by the recognition of someone seeing her, not just surviving, but wanting her to live again. That weekend, Adrian took them to a cozy photo studio. Ava, Noah, and Lily wore matching red sweaters. Adrian stood awkwardly at first, unsure where to go until Noah tugged his hand. "You go here," the boy insisted, pulling Adrian beside them. In the photo, Noah stood in the middle, holding both their hands. Lily giggled in Ava's lap. "Now we all match," Noah grinned. Adrian glanced at Ava. She smiled shyly, and he felt something in his chest shift in a way he couldn't name. That night, after the kids were asleep, Adrian placed the framed photo above the fireplace, replacing a cold abstract painting with something warm, something real. He stood there longer than he meant to. On New Year's Eve, they curled up together in the living room. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. Ava leaned beside Adrian on the couch, their legs almost touching. The kids played quietly nearby, the room filled with the warm glow of the Christmas tree lights. At midnight, fireworks bloomed across the sky, painting the windows with bursts of red and gold. "I never thought I'd find home again," Ava whispered. Adrian looked at her, the colors reflecting in her eyes. "Maybe home finds you," he said softly. She smiled, a small, trembling thing. "Just a little," she murmured. "But enough." Later that night, long after the fireworks faded, the four of them stayed there on the couch. Lily slept on Ava's chest. Noah rested his head on Adrian's leg, one small hand gripping his sweater. Adrian, eyes heavy with the most peaceful exhaustion he'd ever felt, reached across the cushions. His fingers brushed Ava's. She didn't pull away. In that moment, there were no promises, no explanations, just quiet understanding. A man who had lived behind walls. A woman who had lost her light. Two children who needed more than shelter. They weren't a traditional family, but they were becoming something else. Something stronger. Something true. Ava stood by the window, arms wrapped tightly around herself, watching the snow fall onto the front lawn. Days had passed since the reunion, and while warmth filled every corner of Adrian's home, something inside her remained unsettled. When Adrian entered the room, she turned. "I think it's time we go," she said softly. "We've stayed too long."
I
have a friend near Millfield. It's not much, but she said we could stay a while." Adrian nodded once. "Of course," he said. "Whatever you need." She waited, hoping for more. Hoping he might ask her to stay, or at least say he wanted them there. But he stayed silent, expression careful, unreadable. The quiet stung worse than any goodbye. She left the room without another word. Adrian remained standing in the doorway, staring at the space she had just walked out of. Something inside him hollowed, though he didn't reach for her. Habit, fear, self-protection. He wasn't sure, but it froze him in place. That night, long after the kids were asleep, Adrian sat beneath the Christmas tree. The lights blinked softly, reflecting off ornaments in warm colors. In his hands was the framed photo they had taken together, Noah's wide smile, Lily clutching his sweater, Ava's gentle eyes. A family, or something so close it made his throat tighten. Footsteps padded behind him. He turned as Noah appeared, still in his pajamas, holding something folded in his small hands. Without a word, the boy climbed onto the couch beside him. "I drew this," Noah whispered. Adrian unfolded the paper. Crayon lines showed 4 figures beneath a crooked roof. A house. A window with hearts. Snowflakes dotting the sky. And in the center, the 4 of them holding hands. Noah leaned closer. "I know you're not my daddy," he said quietly, "but I love you like one." Adrian's breath left him all at once. The drawing blurred as tears rose, unexpected and unstoppable. He reached out and pulled Noah into his arms, holding him tight. No words, just truth. The next morning, the house was quiet as Ava packed slowly. She folded the few belongings she had brought, her movements shaky. When she stepped past the art room, something new caught her eye. Just outside the door sat a box of watercolor paints, a pad of thick paper, and a small card with a familiar handwriting. "I hope you'll never stop dreaming again." She froze, fingers brushing the box. Warmth bloomed in her chest, soft, painful, overwhelming. It wasn't sadness she felt. It was something softer, something she thought was gone for good. She turned. Adrian was standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, eyes steady but open.
He didn't ask her to stay.
He didn't try to change her mind. He simply looked at her, giving her space to choose. That quiet patience only made her heart ache more. She clutched the card against her chest and walked on. Outside, Ava buckled Lily into her car seat while Noah climbed in beside her. Snow drifted lazily down, covering the road in a thin white shimmer. From the doorway, Adrian watched, hands gripping the frame, expression unreadable. Ava turned the key. Then, "Mommy?" Her hands froze. Noah's voice was soft, trembling with a fear she instantly recognized. "Why can't we stay here?" he asked. "We're a family now, right?" The words struck her like a blow. She looked into the rearview mirror. Noah's eyes were wide and earnest. Lily cooed softly beside him, reaching out a tiny hand. Ava looked back at the house. At the doorway. At Adrian. A man who had once been a stranger in a snowstorm. A man who had carried her children like they were precious. A man who had shown her dreams she thought she'd lost. The engine shut off. Snow crunched under her boots as she stepped out, Lily in her arms, Noah close behind. Adrian turned at the sound. Their eyes met. "Is the offer still open?" she asked quietly. His face didn't show surprise, only something deeper. Relief.
Hope.
Maybe even joy. He stepped forward. "Yes," he said, voice low but certain. It always was. That night, as the clock struck midnight and fireworks painted the sky, the four of them sat together on the couch. Lily slept on Adrian's chest. Noah curled against Ava, eyelids heavy. "Can we live here forever?" Noah asked, looking up. Adrian glanced at Ava. She met his gaze, and with a soft nod, whispered,
"Yes."
"Forever sounds just right." Outside, snow drifted gently past the window. Inside, warmth settled around them, quiet, steady, true. A home was no longer something they were searching for. It was something they had built together. It had been a year since that snow-covered Christmas Eve. Now, laughter bounced off the warm walls. Tiny socks lay forgotten on the stairs. A half-finished snow angel drawing clung to the fridge. The living room smelled of cinnamon and pine. Soft jazz played in the background. In the kitchen, Ava stood at the counter, hands dusted with flour, her golden hair tied in a loose bun. Noah stood beside her on a stool, carefully cutting gingerbread stars. "Like this, Mommy?" he asked. "Perfect," Ava said softly, kissing his temple. Across the room, Lily toddled on wobbly legs, giggling as she clutched a stuffed penguin. Her curls bounced each time she moved. She headed toward the Christmas tree, where Adrian knelt, hanging ornaments. He smiled as he lifted her high. "Look, Miss Lily," he said, pointing to the tree. "Noah made that star. Remember? It was crooked, made from yellow paper and glue, but it gleamed brighter than gold in their eyes." Ava glanced over and caught Adrian's eye. He smiled. She smiled back. No grand wedding had happened. No crowd. No cameras. Just one morning, a simple gold ring with a blue stone appeared on Ava's finger. She'd said yes, not with words, but with the way she stayed. Every day, every night, without hesitation. There was no need for fanfare. They had something better.
Love.
Quiet.
Steady. Real.
Later, while the kids napped, Ava stepped into the sunlit room at the end of the hall, her art studio now. Once empty, it was filled with brushes, canvases, and warmth. On the wall hung a framed article from the local newspaper about her art exhibit. Adrian had quietly submitted her paintings to a charity auction. A children's book editor had seen them. Now, Ava was illustrating a picture book called The Little Boy and the Winter He Lost His Mother. She smiled at the open page on her desk. The watercolor showed Noah's curious eyes, Lily's tiny hat, and a tall man with kind eyes, carrying two children through the snow. A real memory. A saved moment. A life they'd stepped into together. From the hallway, Noah's voice called, "Mommy, Lily's up. And Daddy said we can open one present." She laughed softly. "All right, let's go." Back in the living room, The four of them sat beneath the glowing tree. Noah reached eagerly for a red gift wrapped in silver stars. The tag bore his name in Adrian's neat handwriting. Inside was a canvas. When he pulled it out, Noah gasped. A painting, done by Ava, of the four of them standing hand in hand in the falling snow. Noah at the center. Lily perched on Adrian's shoulders. Ava's arm wrapped around them all. Noah stared at it, wide-eyed. "This is us," he whispered. Adrian nodded. "This is what Christmas should feel like. Always." That night, as snow began falling again outside, they curled together on the couch. Lily slept on Ava's chest, her tiny breaths warm and steady. Noah nestled between them, eyelids drooping. Adrian draped a blanket over them all as the fire crackled softly in the hearth. No one spoke. They didn't need to. If this were a movie, the camera would pull back, out through the window where snowflakes danced in the dark. Outside was freezing, but inside, warmth lived in every corner. It wasn't a perfect home, but it was whole. Not built on luck or chance, but on love, trust, and the courage to stay. Somewhere deep inside that little house, tucked between laughter and healing, lived a quiet miracle, a second chance. And sometimes, the family we need isn't the one we're born into. It's the one we build.